Hello everyone. Our presentation today is about writing. I'm Yongdi. They are my teammates Xiamen and Guy. Our topic is about writing for classes. If you have trouble in writing some articles, our presentation may help you deal with it. First of all, you need to understand the importance of the writings. Writing is one of the key skills all successful students must acquire. But however important these details are to your instructors, they don't mean much if you can't explain them in writing. For example, when you have history class, if you are good at remembering important details, names, causes, and so on. However, they don't mean much if you can't explain them in writing. The same thing happens in a lab course. A class that's as much hands-on as any in college. At some point, you will be asked to write a step-by-step report on an experience you have run. The quality of your lab work will not show if you cannot describe that work and state your findings well in writing. What's the difference about college writing? Now you understand the importance of the writing skills. Here are some tips for you to master your skills. First of all, you need to know the differences between high school and college writing. A student having difficulty with college writing usually just hasn't yet made the transition from high school writing to college writing. In high school, most students think of writing as the subject of English classes. Thus, many high school English instructors focus on specific limited goals. In addition, while college students have highly diverse backgrounds, the skills of college students are less reliable than in average high school class. Think about how college differs from high school. In many colleges, the instructors teach fewer classes and have fewer students. What kinds of papers are commonly assigned in college classes? You are supposed to know the kinds of college paper. It would be simplest to say that there are 3 or 4 or 10 or any number of types of academic writing that have acquired characteristic shapes and styles. Summarize. Every assignment in every course is unique in some ways, so don't think of writing as a fixed form you need to learn. On the other hand, there are certain writing approaches that do involve different kinds of writing. Defined. To restate in your own words the main point of points of another's work. Classified. To describe, explore, or characterize a keyword, idea, or phenomenon. Compare. To group individual items by their shared characteristics separated from another group or items. And analyze. To state a claim and support it with reasons and evidence. Synthesize. To pull together wide pieces of ideas from 2 or more sources. Now I pass to my teammates for more tips.
Today I will introduce that how can I become a better writer. To start with, as an undergraduate, you should recognize how it connects to your other work in college and recognize that writing is vital to your academic success at every step toward your degree and so on. Then you should know what do instructors really want and how can you achieve it. Firstly, title a paper to identify your topic. Your title should prepare your reader for what your paper is about and what you argue. Secondly, adjust the terms of the assignment. For example, if the instructor asks you to argue a point, be sure to make a statement that actually express your idea about the topic. Thirdly, in your instruction, define your topic and establish your approach or sense of purpose. Don't make them feel they have just been dropped into the middle of a paper, or they may miss important ideas and may not make connection you want them to make. Moreover, build from a thesis or a clearly stated sense of purpose. Be clear in your own mind of the difference between your topic and your thesis. Know that the topic is what your paper is about. The thesis is what you argue about the topic. In addition, develop ideas patiently. Don't worry about boring your teacher with too much detail or information. The college instructor will not be bored by carefully explained ideas, well-selected examples, and relevant details. Next, I'm going to talk about how can I make the writing process work for me. First of all, discuss what you read, see, and hear. Talking with others about your idea is a good way to begin to achieve clarity. Second, use email to carry on discussion in writing. An email exchange with classmates or your instructor might be the first step toward putting words on a page. Third, brainstorm. Draw down your thoughts as them come to mind. Besides, keep a journal in which your response to your assigned reading. Go beyond just summarizing. Talk back about what you have been reading or apply the reading to your own experience. Last but not least, ask and respond in writing to what, why, and how questions. The what question will lead to description or summarize. Why and how question will lead you to analyze and experience. In this way, I believe that you can benefit from the writing process. That's all my part. Next, my teammate will give you more tips.
Now it's my turn. I will talk about other kinds of writing in college classes. We know different writing situations have different demands. Today, I introduce different writing skills in these three situations. First, writing in class essays. Second, writing with others in a group project. Third, writing in an online class. When writing class essays is a significant way to make writing a regular part of your study routine, which can create a more active mind, accumulate knowledge, and make you think dialectically. This all can make you easy to have a train of thought in the limited time in class. Before writing, firstly, read the exam prompt or assignment very carefully before you begin to respond. Note keywords in the exam prompt. For example, if the exam assignment asks for an argument, be sure to structure your essay as an argument. Focus on what is highlighted in the exam question itself. Secondly, take a short time to make a draft, which is helpful to develop your ideas as fully and you can write coherently. Third, apply a consistent approach for in-class exams to avoid panic and freeze. This is an effective way to get a high score. And we also need to keep track of time, but do not check the time every minute. You know, a disturbed mind always cannot complete an essay smoothly. When finishing, do not forget to double-check to avoid wrong spellings and grammars. And please always pay attention to your handwriting. A clear handwriting always has positive effect on evaluating by teachers. So write as clearly as you can. Here are the guidelines for writing with others in a group project. First of all, get off to an early start and meet regularly through the process. And it is important to sort out roles according to own strengths and interests. And the most important is to be a good citizen. Remember not to write on the skills of others, and always be confident to do your share. Last but not least, complete a draft early so that you can review, revise, and finally edit together. As for writing in online courses where almost everything depends on written communication, to succeed in online writing, apply the same writing process as fully and thoughtful as an essay or paper for any course. And here we have questions about our presentation. First, what are college instructors much more likely than high school teachers to do? And we have answers here. The second one, what will lead you to analysis and explanation? We also have answers here. And that's all. Thank you.
Group ready to go? We have 3 studies today, so we'll just go ahead and pack you right in.
Good morning to Dr. K and all my friends. Today we want to share about Robert Kiyosaki. For the first, I want to give a brief introduction about him. Robert Kiyosaki is an business and author. Kiyosaki is the founder of Rich Dad Company, a private financial education company that provides personal finance and business education to people through books and video. Besides that, he is also the creator of Crash board and software games to educate adults and children. Business and financial concept. His seminars in USA and Canada are conducted to collaboration with a company called Elite Legacy and are contracted out of local companies as affiliation in the rest of the world, include the Philippines. Robert is the author of more than 26 books, including the international self-published Personal Finance Rich Dad Poor Dad series of books, which has been translated into 51 languages, available in 109 countries, and have combined sales over 27 million copies sold worldwide. The amount that he sells the book is only less than the Bible. This is a part of his book. And he also been criticized for advocating the use of legal and underutilized practice perceived by financially illiterate individuals as get-query philosophy told other self-made wealthy investors of high net worth validate and advocate his earnings. For his early life and career, Robert was born on 8 April 1947 in Hilo, Hawaii, a part of the Yonsei generation of Japan Americans He was the eldest son of Rep. H. Kiyosaki, an academic and educator, and Marjorie O. Kiyosaki. He graduated in the class of 1969 as a desk officer with a Bachelor of Science and a commission as a second LT in the U.S. Marine Corps. After graduating from college, Kiyosaki took a job with Standard Oil Tanker Office as the third mate. Kiyosaki resigned after 6 months to join the Marine Corps. He served in the Marine Corps as a helicopter gunship pilot during the Vietnam War in 1972, where he was awarded an Air Medal. As per Kiyosaki, he enrolled in 2-year MBA program at University of Hawaii at Hilo in 1973, while he is still in the Navy. He was honorably discharged from the Marine Corps in 1947, and after that he took a job as a sales associate for Xerox until June 1978. In 1974, Kiyosaki attended the Harvard ESD seminar. This is something like education company, which he said changed his life. 1977, Kiyosaki started a company called Ripples. The company itself some leather wallet and belt. Then the company brought to market the first nylon and Velcro surfer wallet. Then he started a retail business that made t-shirt, hats, and bag. And the company was bankrupt in 1980. And after that, he joined his friend to purchase the ESD company. They renamed it as a business education company teaching entrepreneurship, investing, and social responsibility. In 1994, Kiyosaki sold the education company. In 1992, Kiyosaki brought out his first book, If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go to School. In his book, he encouraged parents not to send their children to college and instead to enter the real estate business. Taking credit, the book and its message also appealed to a number of youngsters who dropped out of college based on the advice given in the book and earned Kiyosaki's spot in the popular talk show where he propaged his message. And now I pass to my teammate.
And now I'm going to talk about how Robert Kiyosaki's success. First is give and receive. The most assured way to receive something is to give. It comes down to your attitude towards money. To make a lot of money require you give a lot. Not only money, but your time and diligence in working for it. The second is change the way you think. Use your challenges as aspiration. Yes, there will be ups and downs. Plenty of the top entrepreneurs in the world have been in that. This is where your way of thinking needs to change, to take action, and to work hard. Robert Kiyosaki used his problem as motivation to go out and make more money. Third, focus on what will work. Quit trying to do multiple things at once and focus on the project at hand. You can clutter yourself with an overload of things and it can not only be distracting but also exhausting. Invest your time into something you know. There is nothing wrong with diversity, but when it slows you down and gets in the way for more important things, then you need to rethink your priorities. Find what will work for you and stick with it. Each person is different. The fourth, from bad times to new opportunity. People fall into a negative spin of emotions when economy crash, like when the Great Depression happened and when the world financial crisis hit quite a few years ago. But some see this as an opportunity to advance. While some people are worrying, others are using this as an advantage to buy or resolve the issue, knowing that there is a solution. Design your business properly. This is not about the product, it's about designing the business properly without having to raise the capital. A great way to analyze and understand where your business is progressing and lacking is the B to I triangle. 6. Quit saving. Don't just save your money. This doesn't mean to spend it because you can. Instead, use money wisely. Use it to advance your business or invest when the opportunity arises. And now I'm going to talk about the cash flow quadrant. E is employee, S is self-employed, B stands to business owner, and I stands to investor. Most people go to school will program the E and S quadrant. For example, Robert Kiyosaki's father, who is a professor, want him to be an employee because he said that he can get a nice and safe job. And his mother want him to be a specialist because his mother is a nurse. So Robert Kiyosaki went to school and have a Bachelor of Science degree. He can drive ships and fly planes. But he didn't use any of the education that he learned because he wanted to be a rich man. So, on the other hand, his rich father wanted him to be a business owner and learn to be a professional investor. The difference in the E and the other three quadrants is the tax law in 1943 in America. The federal government want the employees to pay the tax before they got paid. So the harder you work, the more money you make, the more money you need to give the government. In 1986, the government changed the law and basically take away the benefits from the self-employed people, which is the S quadrant. Today in America, the S quadrant people need to pay lots of tax. By being the B and the I quadrant, the people can make lots of money and just pay small percentage of tax legally. It is possible to make millions of dollars and just pay 0% of the tax in the I quadrant. The difference between the B and S, which is the self-employed or specialist and the business owner quadrant, is if the small business owner stops work for a month, the business will collapse. They don't really have a business but own a job. In now 21st century, allows these S people to make transition to the B side. Once you have your business up and running, they can begin investing with the excess cash, paying less and less taxes. So it is the reason why the rich getting richer. Now I pass to my group mates.
Okay. Now I'm talking about the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Why this book is a success? Because there are 3 secrets. And the first one is comparing title and interviewing style of communication. First of all, he communicated with his audience in a way no one else does. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a life philosophy sandwiched with investment advice in disguised as a story. Well, other investment advisors were busy publishing their how-to book that appeal to a limited audience. The comparing title and interviewing storyline caught the attention of the average person. All of a sudden, you have father buying Rich Dad Poor Dad for their son. The second one, next, he offer a product or a service on no one else does. His series of game
intended to help family play together and teach children financial concepts, are totally unique. Robert Kiyosaki also realized that visibility is more important than ability. There are other financial teachers who are more qualified than Robert Kiyosaki to teach financial principles to the average person? Perhaps, but the average Joe doesn't care. Rich Dad Poor Dad has become a household name. And now, the number proves it. When the average Joe shops from his first financial book, Rich Dad Poor Dad will be one of the first books he buys. It doesn't matter if you agree with the Rich Dad philosophy or not. There's something to be learned from how the brand is built. Okay, the last one. Play the role of enlightenment. Okay, this will tell us about a professional investment story and set up a correct financial value. For example, the 4 lessons discuss about the history and of tax and the power of the corporation. This book is often emphasize use mind and action to solve the problem. In his mind, any difficulty must have a solution, and this method are brand thinking. There is also a continuous brand thinking, have a flexible mind to exploit business opportunity and make money. Okay, the benefit of reading this book. Broaden your vision, redefine your views about money, how to start and run a company, and in short, if you really have dream to touch the sky, this book is highly recommended. Okay, the synopsis. Synopsis of Rich Dad Poor Dad. We can just use one sentence said by Robert Kiyosaki. It's having 2 dads offer me the choice of contrasting point of view. One is rich man and one is the poor man. Okay. For the contrast, we can see that poor dad always say, we must study hard to get a good job in a good company. But the rich dad think create or buy a company is a better one. Okay, the poor dad always say the love of money is the root of all evil. Rich dad will say the lack of money is the root of all evil. Poor dad thinks he can't afford about the living pressure. Okay, and we must working or invest, must play safe, and we must work for money. But in the mindset of the rich dad, he always tell his Robert Kiyosaki how can he afford it, and we must learn to manage risk. When we working or invest, and we must let the money work for us. Okay. Okay, so next I will pass to J-Paul to continue it.
Okay, good morning everyone. Now I'm gonna talk about the content about Rich Dad and Poor Dad. For the lesson 1, the rich dad don't work for money. This is the most important point. The rich have money work for them. The cost of study that poor and middle classes take is the conventional method. Study hard in school, get good grades, then get a safe job with excellent benefits at a big company. Robert start immediately with a lesson juxtaposing the rich and poor perspective. The poor and middle class work for money. For the lesson 2, why teach financial literacy? The first point, by the accounting definition, it is, but in reality, your home result in cash moving out of your pocket, the mortgage payment, insurance, property, taxes, and worst of all, the missed opportunities from having your money stuck in your house instead of available to work for you. The second, if you want a house or a bigger house than you already have, First, create assets that generate enough cash flow to pay for the liability that a house is. The third, most people mistakenly view wealth in terms of net worth, or assets minus liabilities. Lesson 3, mind your own business. The poor and middle classes spend the most of their time and energy working for other people, their company, the government, and the bank. Second, you can keep your day job, but put your money in assets for the business as long as you don't have to be around for them to make money. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, rental properties, notes, intellectual property, royalties, and others. Third, instead of allowing that to happen to you, don't lose yourself in your schooling and job. Rather, focus on your own asset column. And the last, this chapter is reminiscence of Stephen Covey Gordon's number 2 activities. Those things that are important but not urgent, for which you should first be making time. The lesson 4, the history of taxes and the power of corporation. One important tax tool to reach is the 1031 or like kind exchange, which allows you defer paying capital gains taxes on the sale of real estate if you use the proceed of the sale to buy another piece of real estate. The second, what is important that where that history has brought us in the present day. The rich play the game smarter, legally avoid taxes, while the middle class foots the bill for most of the government's spending. For the last lesson, the rich invent money. Essentially, you have 2 options in life. The first is work hard, pay taxes, save anything left over, and get taxed on the saving. The second, take the time to develop your financial intelligence and harness the power of your brain to create assets. Most people buy package investment for real estate companies, stock brokers, and others. The rich create investment by assembling a deal themselves. To do this, you need to develop 3 skills. The first is how to find an opportunity that everyone else has missed. The second, how to raise money. And the last one is how to organize smart people.
Now I will sharing the difference about asset and liability. In the concept of Robert Kiyosaki, he think that asset is, for example, you buy a house and after that you rent it and you can receive the rental every year. But most people think that when you buy a house, you just own an asset, but it's not true. When you buy a house, you must pay the installment to the bank, and this make you pay a lot of expenses, and that make you turn to liability. Now I will share a video, a part of the book of Robert. If you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school.
History, and she stated, I'm sorry, what was the last test you took? He said, I asked his daughter. History, she stated. How many questions were there? About 100. Well, how did you do? I got a B, 85 right answers out of 100. So you missed 15. Yes. what caused you to miss 15? Good question, right? She answers, I don't know. He comes back, do you know what the 15 mistakes were? Right? Great question again. She goes, no, but I don't really care. What I care about is the ones I got right. So then Robert turns to Glenn, his friend Glenn, and says, that's the key right there. Kids are more worried about their grades than they do about learning. Our education system teaches them that being right is more important than learning what you don't know. That's what I'm saying. You know, they're training them to...
The video is talk about the failure of the education system in now. They only think that the correct is important and the wrong is not important. And 3O 讲 MCQ。
Which quadrant is a rich side quadrant in the cash flow quadrant? C. The investor and business owner is in the rich side in the cash flow quadrant. The second, is the quick saving in how Robert Kiyosaki's success really means do not save money? Fourth, it means use the money wisely. Which one is not the secret of the success of Rich Dad and Poor Dad? D. Publisher makes a series of ads for marketing. What service does Rich Dad company provides? D. Financial education. And thank you. That's all of our presentation.
Okay, good morning everyone. Today we would like to
You might
present.
want to use the microphone. Some of you, everybody in the back can hear you, and sometimes they're making a noise that you shouldn't be making. So point it right at your mouth so that you can, otherwise it won't pick up.
Good morning everyone. Today we would like to present about how to win friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie was an American writer and lecturer. He began his career not as a writer but as a teacher of public speaking. He started out teaching night classes at a YMCA in New York, and his classes became widely popular and highly attended. He was born in November 24, 1888 and died in 1st of November 1955, and with the age of 66. He also wrote How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, Lincoln the Unknown, and several others books. One of the core ideas in his book is that it is possible to change other people's behavior by changing one behavior toward them. So, this book is published in 1936. Over 30 million copies have been sold worldwide and is still a popular book in business and business communication skill. In 2011, it was number 19 on Time magazine list on the 100 most influential books. The original book contained colorful and anecdotes and insightful wisdom, and gave instruction in handling people, winning friends, bringing people to your way of thinking, being a great leader, and successful navigating home life. It contains advice on how to create success in business and personal life. Now we would like to introduce the 4 parts of the book. The first part is about techniques in handling people. The first one is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Even an animal rewarded for good behavior will learn much faster and far more effectively than an animal punished for bad behavior. Since then, the principle applies to humans as well. Criticizing others doesn't yield anything positive. Human nature does not like to admit fault. When people are criticized or humanized, they really respond well and will often become defensive and resent their critique. To handle people well, we must never criticize, condemn, or complain because it will never result in the behavior we desire. Say to yourself, I should forgive them for this because and conclude this sentence with an open mind, you will be a much better position to hold back from criticizing. Secondly, give honest and sincere appreciation. People will really work at their maximum potential under criticism, but honest appreciation brings out their best. We tend to take the people in our life for granted so often that we neglect to let them know that we appreciate them. Appreciation, too, is not simple flattery. It must be sincere, meaningful, and with love. With words of true appreciation, we have the power to completely change another person's perception of themselves, improve their motivation, and be a driving force behind their success. So the third one is about arouse in the other person and eager ones. To convince someone to do something, we have to frame it in terms of what motivates them. And in order to do that, we have to be able to see things from their point of view as well as our own. In other words, give people what they want, not what you want. To get what we want from another person, we must forget our own perspective and begin to see things from the point of view of others. When we can combine our desire with their wants, they become eager to work with us and we become mutually achieve our objective. Now I would like to pass to my teammate.
The second section of the book is titled 6 Ways to Make People Like You. First is become genuinely interested in other people. If we want people to be interested in us, we have to be genuinely interested in them. When you become interested in people, ask questions and allow them to talk. They will love you for it. There is a common theme in sales that states if you do not truly believe in your product, you have a very difficult time selling it. I'm sure most of you may agree. It is easier to talk up something you believe in than putting on an act. Same concept here. If you put on an act when talking to people and try to act interested, you will have less than ideal result considering how a productive conversation goes. If you truly believe your own thought, there is no reason as to why it cannot be true. So in turn, if you believe you are interested in what others say, you will pay more attention. People can easily detect whether or not you are sincere. Second is smile. Smiling shows off your goodwill and puts people in a pleasant mood. Happiness counts over everything, so genuinely smile at everyone. If you are not feeling like smiling, think positive thoughts or think of something funny to get you to smile. Smiling is attractive and contagious. People around you can't help but smile when they see a big smile on your face. A smile is a simple gesture that doesn't cost you money, energy, or time, but it can brighten someone's day, change the way you feel, and make you more approachable. Third, everyone knows how impressionable it is when a person remembers your name. People appreciate being appreciated. They enjoy the thought of others thinking that they matter. A person's name is an essential part of their identity. They say the sweetest and most important sound in language is the sound of your own name. We have all been there when you recognize the person but can't remember their name. It is over uncomfortable and sometimes embarrassing. We often use the excuse that I'm not good with names, but if you want to master people, you need to begin to remember his name. I know it's not that easy, especially when you are constantly meeting new people on a daily basis, but practice and work on it, become conscious of those around you, and naturally more people will begin to respect and like you. Fourth is be a good listener. Most people want to be heard, but very ironically, very few are good at listening. People are not interested in anything more than themselves. When having a conversation, ask questions the other person will enjoy answering. Encourage them to talk about themselves and their accomplishments. Besides,
Listening is an active process. It involves empathy, which is to walk in someone's shoes and understanding. Listening allows for greater clarity, improved relationships, and most likely will result in others liking you more. Most easily said, good listener display through this unique ability respect for the other person. Talking in terms of other people's interest is another way to put them first and leave a great impression. People love it when you talk to them in terms of their interests. They love when you are knowledgeable on subject they enjoy and can have intelligent conversation about what matters most of them. That doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in every category, but being able to talk to people in terms of their interests goes a long way. One way to do this is to study topics of interest before living with people. If you can get others to tell you about them, the more chance they will like you a whole lot more. The easiest way I can put it is think of other person as a superior, respect them, and naturally Mr. Carnage's suggestions will come with ease. Last but not least, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. The key word here is sincerely. This tip will not work to your advantage if you don't do it generally. Compliment people on tasks they do well. Make them feel like they are really doing something worth appreciating. Show people you have trust and faith in them to get something done. Show them you are confident in them. They will light up with raised self-esteem and will become much more fond of you. Most likely, this will make them feel important, which only works more on so in your advantage. The key is to make sure you do it sincerely. If you have paid attention to the 6 ways to make people like you, you are probably noticing a trend. Each of the points is focused on the other person. Next, I will let my teammates present.
Now we're talking about the part 3 of win people to your way of thinking. The first one is the only way to get a best of an argument is to avoid it. Humans often temper to argue with others. Humans are often tempered to argue with others, especially when we have convinced us that we are right. Argument is pointless come to the end. Arguing can't eat anything and is not going to make opponent to like us. And it is impossible to win an argument. If we lose the argument, we lose. If we win the arguments, our opponent will feel inferior, hurt his pride, make them more hate us, and in the other words, we will still lose. Arguing just results in the other person even more firmly convinced that he's right. Arguing just results show respect for the other person's opinions. Lower our attitude often cause the other person to be much more reasonable or even thank us for having an understanding attitude. It also inspires our opponent to be just as far and open-minded as we are, without our egos triggered when having an argument. In fact, the ideas themselves are not so important to us, but our self-esteem, which is threatened when we are told by someone that we are wrong. The second one is begin with a friendly way. Never temper foreign with our opponents. If we are angry and frustrated at someone's attitude or opinion, going temper foreign will not make them agree with us but only make us unpointless to them. Control our temper. We should control our temper and the way and volume of our speech to understand the disagreement between us, and we will probably realize that we are actually not so far apart away at all, that the points on which we differ are few and the ones on which we agree are many. Do not let people feel negatively to us. Since a person feels negatively about us, we can't win him to our way of thinking and not possible to force them to agree with us, but we can lead them in that direction if we are gentle and friendly with them. At last, I'm going to use a saying goes to sum up this principle. A drop of honey catch more fly than a gallon of gold. The third one is get the other person saying yes immediately. We can begin a conversation with the things that we agree. We should start by emphasizing the things on which we agree to each other, and be sure to convey that we are both striving for the same result, to let opponents know that our differences are in method but not purpose. The second point is difference are in The second point is get the person saying yes as soon as possible. Because when someone say no, all of her pride rests upon her being consistent with that no. She will withdraw herself and guard against all the acceptance. The third point is lead our opponent to the direction that we want. We need to let our conversation moving in affirmative direction where no withdrawal take place. Thus our opponent will have a very accepting and open attitude. The fourth one is let the other person feel that the idea is his or her. We make suggestions and let the other person think out the conclusion. This because no one likes to feel like they are being told what to do. And we are much prefer to think independently, have autonomy, and act on our own ideas. The second is we can guide them to our way of thinking. When we are trying to win someone to our way of thinking, we can guide them to there and step back on the halfway and let them see the ideas through to completion. The third one is be a good listener, encourage others to talk about their ideas. If we are truly only after the results, why care about the process? We can accept and listen to others' ideas so long as we can achieve what we are expected. The last one is be sympathetic with the other person's idea and desire. Faced with other situation, problem, needs, and desire. Assume we were the other person, faced with her situation, problem, needs, and desire. At the last, we would indeed see things just he does. Feel understood and recognize their trouble and opinion. Everyone wants to feel understood and have their trouble and opinion recognized. Use this to turn hostility into friendliness. The last one is if someone feels negatively toward us we begin apologize and sympathizing with their point of view, they will begin apologizing and sympathizing with our point of view. So I will pass to my teammate.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Simon, and now I briefly talk about part 4, be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or resentment. Okay. 1. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. It's much easier to listen to unpleasant things after we've been praised for our good point. Changing people without offending them is to begin with appreciation for their strength. Okay, when you're going to offer negative feedback, start with a compliment first. Then you criticism them. Finally, and more importantly, put ways with another positive compliment. This will let the person feel that you are not giving them criticism straightly. 2. Call attention to people's mistake indirectly. Changing people without offending them or arousing them resentment. Simply changing 1 3-letter word can be our key to success. Many people begin their criticism with sincere praise followed by the word but and the critical statement. However, this situation could easily be reversed by changing the word but to and. It's much easier to accept a praise because there was no follow-up with direct criticism. Start swapping but for and when you deliver a critical feedback to help you frame it in a positive and uplifting way instead of inferring a failure or disapproval. 3. Talk about your own mistake before criticizing the other person. Change people's way without inflicting negative feelings to admit that we are also susceptible to mistakes. Listen to a description of our own faults when the person criticizing begins by humble saying that he is also far from perfect. When you are about to criticize someone, ask yourself, first, what was I like when I was the age? Second, what was I thinking when I was at their level of experience? Your empathy wheels will start running, and you realize that you have an opportunity to be a great mentor to this person and try to be positive influence. Think of yourself as your mentor instead of their boss, their friends instead of their parents. 4. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. No one likes to take orders. Instead of saying do this or don't do that, we should more often to say, you might consider this, or do you think that will work? Asking questions or simulate creativity, leading to new ideas and better solutions. When you want to give an order to a child or employee, resist of the temptation to simply tell them what to do. You should ask them questions that will help bring them to the conclusion that is the best action to take and will make them want to do it. 5. Use encouragement. Make the fault seems easy to correct. If we tell our children, spouses, or employees that they are stupid or bad at certain things, have no gift for it, and are doing it all wrong, we strip them of any motivation to improve. We should use opposite technique or openly encourage them as they take steps toward improvement, rather than simply telling someone their goal is out of reach. Find ways to encourage some victories when possible. These smaller compliments can help make room for sharing guidance while keeping them inspired. 6. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Change people without arousing resentment is to make the person happy about doing what we want them to do. Offering incentive, prize, and authority are all great ways to make a person happily accept our decisions and do what we want them to do. To be an effective leader, keep these guidelines in mind when it necessary to change attitudes or behavior. 1. To be sincere and don't promise anything you can't deliver. 2. Know exactly what you want to do than the person want to do. 3. Be empathetic. Ask yourself what is the other person really wants. 4. Consider the benefits that person will receive from doing what you suggest. 5. Match those benefits to the person's want. And lastly, when you make requests, put it in a form that will convey to the other person the idea that he personally will benefit. And that's all for our presentation. Thank you.
review and kind of compare what he was saying to what Dr. Christensen has been telling us with his disruptive technology. There are some, I think they pretty much correlate, but there may be a few differences. But one of them that is kind of jumped out at me was what Kawasaki just said was basically, well, he made, he has these little puns that are interesting, but don't worry, be crappy. In other words, you're not going to have a perfect product when you start. And he followed up by saying, basically ship and then test it later. There is some of that in what Christensen is saying, is that usually when you when you're trying to find a new market, people who want something that they can't get right now, they can't afford it probably, then it's probably going to be it's going to be a worse product, but it's going to be better than nothing. So it's kind of like when he was talking about, when Christian was talking about the transistor radio. It was really crappy, but it was better than nothing to teenagers who didn't have a radio. And their parents had a big giant radio that you couldn't take out into the park with your friends or anything, so a little bad sounding transistor radio was better than nothing, which gave Sony the opportunity to come into the American market, grab up a lot of buyers, and then work their way up until they put RCA out of business, pretty much. I think they still exist, but they're nothing like they used to be. They were the monopoly in the old days. So the idea of don't worry, be crappy is also if you have a market for that crappy. If it's better than nothing, then you have some place to go. It was interesting that Guy Kawasaki was talking about the refrigerator ICE 1.0 and ICE 2.0 and ICE 3.0, because Christensen kind of brought up it wasn't actually ICE 4.0, but it's the disruptive version of what Guy Kawasaki was talking with the transition of ICE from sawing it in the lake to manufacturing ICE to having a refrigerator. I think it's in India that somebody's figured out how to make a cooling system that isn't good enough to make ice, but it's good enough to have a refrigerator. And so they're selling it like for $20 or something. And the post office is selling refrigerators because there are millions of people in India that don't have a refrigerator. But now they can buy one for $20. It's not good enough to make ice, but it's good enough to keep your milk cold. So I think it's a good example, and it kind of dovetails with what Guy Kawasaki was saying about ICE 1.0 and so forth. Here's one that's crappy. It doesn't make ice, but it's good enough for people who don't have anything else. And so trying to find that unmet need, then that's where what he was saying is absolutely right. If it's crappy, it's okay. If the alternative is nothing, and then you start there and you get better. And that's probably the case in almost all the examples that Dr. Christensen talks about in disruptive technology. Is they all start out crappy, because that's why there's no market there. No market has been developed there, and you're trying to bring something in that meet a massive market that isn't being touched right now, and so crappy's okay. So you go in cheap and crappy, and go from there. The idea also that he's talking about that customers cannot tell you what they want. He was particularly talking about the future. Customers cannot tell you what they want in the future. You are creating their future. They don't know what they have no idea. That's why in Dr. Christensen's original PhD dissertation, he was going through talking about the big hard drives and the smaller hard drives and the smaller hard drives. And by the time they got to the smallest hard drives, all but 3 of the 53 manufacturers of the big hard drives had gone broke because they kept asking their customers, do you want a smaller hard drive? And their customers kept saying, no, why do we want a smaller hard drive? Because they hadn't seen the future. They hadn't seen what you do with a smaller hard drive. And so most of the manufacturers, the big hard drives, all went out of business. And the people who ventured into the smaller hard drives are the ones that still exist, or that went into existence. So again, you're looking at the next curve. And one thing he said was you look at the actions at the next curve. And that's really important. So you're trying to find, the only way you're going to find that place where you can bring out something that's revolutionary is looking ahead of not thinking about competing with somebody with the current product, but thinking ahead to the next product that doesn't exist yet. And so, kind of, as you may and probably do know, Steve Jobs got fired by his own company. Around 1990 or so, he got fired. And then, when they were about to go broke, in fact, everybody was saying Apple was dead. Apple was dead. They finally brought Steve Jobs back. And when he came back, that's when he started working on the mobiles. Is that he was looking at that next curve. Is what can we do with mobile phones, with mobile devices? And they started taking the leadership in the world in mobile devices. And that's when suddenly they went from being dead to being resurrected and being, going to the forefront again. In just a matter of a few years, they went from dead to becoming the biggest technology company in the world. That also says something about one of the other things he said is the CEO should be doing the demo. It kind of goes beyond that, but there was after Steve Jobs, and I think it's influenced by Steve Jobs certainly. There was a survey of marketing executives about the power of branding, how you brand your product, how you build your image, how you build your reputation. And I think because of Steve Jobs, the conclusion was that a CEO can be a major part of that brand. It can be worth 90% of the brand is a strong CEO. I think that was probably somewhat exaggerated because of Steve Jobs, because there's a lot of huge companies that you have no idea who their CEO is. And so a CEO obviously doesn't have to be a Steve Jobs for a company to prosper. But if you have a Steve Jobs, if you have somebody who's out there and is the face of the company, like Steve Jobs, that can be worth a lot in your brand, for sure, and a lot of help in your marketing. The design counts. He was making fun of all the people who buy these black boxes that we call laptops, and was saying that doesn't make any sense to build computers like this, basically. And that's also something that I don't think we watched his video, but there's another video about marketing where the guy, one of his main points is that design is basically free when you start mass producing. So if you take a little bit of time to design something that really looks cool, then it's going to be an important part of your marketing forever, and its real cost is almost nothing when it comes to mass producing whatever it is you're doing. So design is important. He didn't go into a lot of detail on that, but in fact, if anything, his examples were kind of playing it down in a sense, because there are more black boxes like this than there are not. But nonetheless, if you want a competitive edge, the design of your product is important. It is an important part of your marketing mix. There is in marketing mix what's called the 4 Ps, and one is the product. The first one's the product, and in fact, one of the other videos you're to watch this week is by an investor in the Silicon Valley, and he says, in fact, he puts money into these new startups in the Silicon Valley, and he says basically, we don't want to give anybody any money until we know they have a product, until they have a good product. So he's kind of going the other way around. If it's one thing if it's your money and if you're building your product in your garage, But if you're an investor, you want to know there's a product there that is of value. And so they're not, his company's not giving money to somebody without a product that they think is of value, at least or is about ready to go. Because hiring a bunch of marketing people, hiring a bunch of executives, hiring a bunch of staff, it's just wasting your money until you have a product. And so he looks at it a little bit different direction, the investor does, than Guy Kawasaki. If you have the funding and you can start off crappy, I would say Christensen would agree with that, and probably even this other guy would too. But if you're going to go out and ask people for $100 million, you better have a product that impresses them. And actually, I think Guy Kawasaki in another video here more or less agrees with that. He actually talked about something that we are talking about in this, that we're doing in this class, presentations. One of the big problems with some of your presentations is that you're putting too many words on a slide. You need bigger letters, you need bigger graphics, and you need fewer words. And the problem with having lots of words on a slide is that you create, kind of what he was saying, is that you create kind of a cognitive conflict. And that's in your grading form, your evaluation form. You should be reading that. But you don't want to have too many words, because if you have too many words, people are trying to have to decide, do I listen to this person or do I read what they have on their slide? Because you can't do both at the same time. So if you have too many words, they're either not going to listen to you, or they're going to, or basically they're going to concentrate on the words and, they're going to concentrate on the words and not listen to you, or they're going to listen to you and not think about the words, and therefore the words are useless. You might as well not put them there. Or they actually give up on both of them. They say, I can't follow this. I quit. And so they don't listen and they don't read because there's this cognitive conflict. So try not to put in so many words in your presentations. Phrases, bulleted phrases, that's why it comes up that way. They have all these bullets, and it's set up. When you first go into a slide, it sets you up for the proper size of your text. It should be a pretty big size and just a few words to represent what you want to talk about, and then throw in a graphic with it. But too many of you are trying to put too many words on it, and it causes confusion in the presentation. Changing mind is a sign of intelligence. That's, I think, an important rule that, again, many people do overlook because it is a matter of pride. They don't want to admit they made a mistake. And it's very important that you know when to fold them, when to hold them, when to fold them, when to change when you need to. I guess the last thing he was talking about was that chart he was making, uniqueness and value. And the ideal is when you have both. When you have both, it's unique and it's valuable. Then obviously that's the key. But that probably, going back to Christensen, that's probably not going to be your first product. That's what you're aiming for, to be unique and valuable. Unique is probably, when you create unique, that's when you're looking for that new market. If it's unique, that means you don't have any competitors. That, by definition, unique means one and only. And so if you can find unique and you find a market for it, now you're ready to go. So you're trying to find the unique that has a market of people who need who need you at a price they can afford. Now you can build from there, and hopefully, Apple obviously has always been working on the idea that they're worth more than their competition. But guess who's winning the war? Their competition. So you need to be a little careful with that idea that value is not the same as cost. It is absolutely true. It isn't. But you have to, your marketing then has to be a lot better if you're going to overcome the opposition. If they have a low cost, you have a high cost, and you do pretty much the same thing. He was, I thought he mentioned it here, but I guess it's in his other video. He mentioned that they might have gone out of business except that they found their niche market. Their niche market was people who wanted to do design and so forth. That the desktop publishing, that I started learning desktop publishing soon after they made it. And so that's one of the things I teach in my journalism classes. I teach desktop publishing, which is how you create publications electronically. And I started doing that in 1986 and started teaching it at a university in 1988, maybe the first class of desktop publishing in any university. And they said he said that saved them. Because they had spreadsheets, and their spreadsheets were basically the same as Microsoft's. They had, presentation like PowerPoint presentation. That's basically the same as Microsoft. They had word processing. That was basically the same as Microsoft. So if you have all those things and they're the same as Microsoft, and you're trying to say we're more valuable, that doesn't get you anywhere. That's not a solid argument anymore. So you can't sell your value if you're doing the same thing as somebody else. But then they came in with the mouse and with desktop publishing that, you use the mouse and creating what you wanted to create, what you wanted to publish. And they had the best, not just the best software, but they also had the best hardware to go with it. Now the power of their hardware was enough better than IBM's at that time was the big competition. Theirs was enough better that all the people who wanted to do good graphics insisted they had to go to Macintosh. They needed a Mac. And so that was their foothold that saved the company in direct competition with IBM, was that they did, and not to say that IBM can do that now, or Microsoft products can do that now, obviously, but still their reputation is we do it better. The power of our machine, if you're trying to work with heavy graphics, we do it better. And they still have that reputation, and still a lot of big companies insist on going to Macs to do their creative work. And so that saved their company, he said. And so that was their unique item of value that saved the company. The rest of the stuff was basically on a par with IBM. Didn't require a lot of power. Wasn't that much different than the Microsoft products. And so they would have died trying to compare themselves until they got into the graphic area. And now that saved them. Okay, well, we're past time. Any questions? Anything that anybody want to bring up? Okay, then anyway, have a good weekend.